Hello and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It is Friday, and so we have a Khyber Shards Answers, and we are joined by Casey today. Hi, Casey.
Hello.
So we're going to jump right into questions. The
Awesome.
first one comes from Emily. Emily says, if Shade had died from the cursed sarcophagus, what would you, Casey, have wanted to happen to Cal?
My unhelpful jerk answer immediately was whatever Cal wants to do. And so then thinking about what that is, I sort of see him being a viewers, please forgive me. We all know and love Puzzle Dust, but a less annoying Puzzle Dust that he sort of hangs around the mansion because he definitely has a relationship still with Ari and Pog and, tolerates Ezri in the same way that Ezri tolerates him. And I think he would enjoy spending time with River and the Ocelot out there. But I also see him, or at least I hope this for him, that he would be able to pop back and forth between um, Thelanis and the mansion, that just
Mhm.
like Puzzle Dust, he sort of shows up and is in everybody's business, but in a more noble and elegant way than Puzzle Dust.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, yeah, River was my immediate thought is hanging out in the Grove would be a very natural environment for Cal. Um but yeah, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Well, hopefully we'll never need to find out, but that's good to know.
Agreed.
Mia asks, how much of your urgency to get to Hirazi was because you, the player, were also worried about her?
I find this one a little difficult to answer because I'm not sure that I can always separate my character motivations and my
Sure.
player motivations.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I was like, convinced it was completely character motivated. But as a player, I also really like her and
Hmm.
I enjoy that character a lot. And I um, want to pursue any storyline involved with a Sphinx. That's just awesome. But character wise, when she used her magic to help us save Ezri, she mentioned the danger that we were putting her in. And so, as a
Hmm.
character and as a player, in the back of my mind, it has been very much me worried about her and concerned for her and wanting to go and check on her. But Shade's guilt of Ezri dying in that situation has prevented her from pursuing any of her own um, sort of motivations and goals. But this one felt, this is a very real threat that we possibly put her in. And Shade
Hmm.
has, very strong loyalty to the people that she cares about. Um, so I think both, Mia. I think it was a little bit of both.
Yeah. Cool. And that's fair. It is, we like as players usually to, to try and be very, this is what my character would want, but it's also, this is what I, the player, think is neat. And,
Right.
and that's not an invalid way to make decisions. Mia asks, how did you feel the gang's interaction with Hirazi went?
I thought it was great. I I wanted nothing more than to make sure that she got the information. I had zero expectations other than in that moment, Shade felt like this is what needed to happen. Yes, it might take 2 seconds. Yes, 1,000 things could have gone wrong, but Shade's strength is not her ability to plan and execute things well.
uh,
Her strength is Survival.
I think you have suggested the answer to her follow-up question, which is, were you expecting the incredible lore dump that you got?
No. No, that was a great bonus. The fact that she also wasn't already dead and Colseer wasn't standing over her, like, you know, yeah. It was an excellent, excellent little side trip.
There was the temptation to put danger there, but there was also the temptation of, I planned other things for this session, and if I put danger there, then we're never going to get to them. So let's.
I was
Uh,
curious, that moment that it was clear that that was not where you were expecting us to go. Um, I was I was curious what would happen. Yes,
I
so
was
thank
mostly.
you.
I, I I mostly didn't expect you to go there first. Like, it didn't occur to me that the order would be the person who lives across town would come after the person who lives a teleportation spell away. Like that, it was mostly the order that threw me off. So I was prepared very thoroughly for the conversation with Shadra and what she was going to want you to do. And I had all of that worked out and the maps that I was going to need for the mission that she was going to send you on and everything. Because I just assumed the weight of it would be the shorter trip first. But I understand Shade's motivations in wanting to go the more urgent path. I was mostly just feeling extremely lucky that I just remember all of the giant lore, um, because I made up that entire conversation with Harazi. Like, that was not anything I was prepared to do. Um, and there's a spot where I've got her explaining. I think I did this fairly smoothly, but there's a spot where I've got her explaining um, how Kulsir is able to do his body sliding thing, like where that magic comes from. And I start to explain it from one source. Like, the sentence begins with me talking about there's these giants called the Sulat League. And then halfway through, I realized, oh no, it would be way cooler if it was this other group of elves who were really into necromancy, because then it would tie into other things that we've got going on. And so I like pivot halfway through with this sort of awkward transitional phrase that that kind of just sort of ignores the first half of the sentence. And one of the cultures of like, it just
I
it's this
totally didn't
this
catch that at all. Oof.
yeah, I mean, I was just making that
Well
part up
done.
on that was I was totally just making up. And so wouldn't that be an interesting idea? But halfway through a sentence where I'd already started to explain something. um but yes, that's the only one of the very few circumstances where my ability to just keep large amounts of fictional lore just sort of stacked around in my head is really, really helpful. um,
It is very impressive.
I, I'm glad. uh, yeah, you know. um, but no,
I
that
would
was
be
like
very
it ended up
much
being really convenient, because
good.
that was the only place where I could get you that information, and it was useful information for you guys to have going forward. So it ended up working well.
I'm glad. I do worry about these moments that I feel Shade feels strongly about.
Hmm.
And they're not super often, but I, she gets very pushy. I get very pushy as her. Um and so I do worry sometimes that that is diverting not just the story, because you and the other players are very good about making things work, but diverting some
Hmm.
of like the fun. Um and so I'm glad that there was a payoff
Yeah. No, I mean,
for
yeah,
others.
it
I just
works.
wanted a sphinx.
And we got both.
I know.
Mia also asks, how do you feel about missing your opportunity to sit in your very own Selshadra chair?
Well, Mia, I hadn't thought about it much until you asked this question. So, more sad now. There was just a small moment where I did think, "Ooh, I wonder what my chair looks like." No. She wouldn't sit down during this. Um
uh, I am I'm curious, because it didn't come up as a question. Um, what prompted Shade's idea of becoming a mentoree of Kira Selshadra? What's attractive about Selshadra to Shade?
Oh, I'm sure that this gets annoyingly redundant, but the amount of power that she has, like, Shade has noticed that Shade can't say and do anything she wants,
Mhm.
without social consequences, and apparently those matter. And Selshadra can. She can absolutely say and do anything she wants, and nobody corrects her, nobody threatens her life openly. She just that amount of power and not having to negotiate's the wrong word, because obviously she negotiates to maintain that level of power, but um compromise what she wants to do
Mhm.
is very appealing to Shade, and Shade does not understand how she's able to do it.
Yeah. Um, the chair thing actually originated in the Geek Pantheon's Patreon game, because the little, like, you guys made a little side trip to the gnome nation of Zilargo, which is run by this big brother state, basically called the Trust. And our patrons got arrested by the Trust one time and were put in interrogation rooms. And just on a weird lark in the middle of the moment, I decided that one way to represent the just sheer volume of data that the trust collects on everyone who comes through is that in the meantime the trust has like built these custom chairs specifically to fit the person they've arrested, because I really like the notion of I really like the mismatch of something that seems incredibly courteous but implies something incredibly threatening. Like
Mhm.
I find that very appealing, and I like that because it fits with the idea of you've got the I love this in Eberron, you've got this group of gnomes, and we think gnomes and it's kind of this, quirky, fairyish bubbliness, that you get in most fantasy settings, but also they're terrifyingly well informed about every aspect of your life. Um, and so I liked that for Cel Shadra as well, because what you're talking about. We've not got anyone who's close enough to Cel Shadra to say how much of this extremely socially awkward persona is her and how much is mask and how much, like, what is um the depth of it. And I like having a spidery mysterious figure whose at least outward self is not really in any way there's not really anything threatening about Selshadra overtly. She's this
Mhm.
clearly this person who appears to have as little clue about social cues as Shade. And I think it's funny that Shade sees that, but that she gets away with it, and that's the distinction.
There's 2 moments with Selshadra that have impacted Shade so very much um, in her respect slash desire to learn for her, and it was that moment after the attack in the Red Ring where the council was debating our lives, and Selshadra was in the middle of that. I mean, she
Hmm.
was the spokesperson, and at very least let us live. And Shade, that moment was so impactful for Shade, just
Yeah.
realizing that they escaped Black Wheel and still their lives hang in what others say or think of them. And so the amount of power that she exhibited in that scene. And then when we met her for a meal, I think it was at the Ship's Cat,
Hmm.
and that situation, she kept saying things that Shade would have said, and Ari would have criticized Shade in those moments.
Hmm.
But nobody said anything to Selshadra.
Hmm.
And so those are the two interactions that just really stick with Shade and wanting to know more about her. Um, as a player, she's such a good character. Like she's absolutely fascinating for everything that you described. Just, physically doesn't look imposing, and yet you do what she says.
Yeah. Yes, I've really enjoyed. I like anytime I have opportunity to play that character, which is why I keep causing her to reappear. And the voice is one that I'm very pleased with the voice because it's mostly cadence, and I feel like that's when I've really got a character in the voice, when it's not just an accent, when it's not just a tone, when it's something about the
Interesting.
way that they talk is when
Yeah.
and that's when I have an easy time being consistent, is if I come up with the way that they talk as opposed to being just the accent that they speak with. Because I fall in and out of the accents all the time, but if I can get down how she speaks, where she pauses, that sort of thing, that's when I really feel like I've got a character, and so I tend to keep reusing them. That or Malcolm on the ship, just like when I can get a very distinctive speech pattern, or Cadric and Donabella kind of have the same like ridiculous enthusiasm thing going on,
Mhm.
but it's um, but I know how to express those characters with the voice and with the face and with all the stuff, and so it works together. I like when I get a character down that well. It makes it fun more fun to play. And she's a character that I've never really gotten to do anything with. I've played, I mean, of the 3 long campaigns I've played, or I guess 4 long campaigns I've played in Eberron, most of them have ended up in Stormreach, at least for a period of time, um, either as a DM or as a player. And in none of them have I gotten to mess with Curacell Shadra. It's always been some of the other Storm Lords, Paolo Omarin and Varen Lassite, and some of the others. And getting to play around with one of the NPCs that's there that I've never really messed with has been fun. And getting to take a character who's obviously built in the book to be a really good, dangerous adversary for the players and turn her into a patron ally character, that's also very fun for me.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and I've done that with a lot of characters. I mean, Mirabella is kind of the same thing. Is she's obviously meant to be this very threatening presence, and she is,
I was about to
even
say
in our
she
game, that she is a very threatening presence. But um, but her introduction into the story wasn't, and part of that is because the players, the way you guys have built these characters that are not, for the most part, traditionally heroic,
right.
and who are really leaning into Eberron's tendency to play around in the gray areas of morality. And that makes it possible for you guys to take patrons that a more traditionally heroic team probably wouldn't want to be working with Selshadra the way you guys are.
Yes. Moral, upstanding citizens, we are not.
But it's fun to play around with. Um,
It is. It is.
um, Eric inquires, what is Shade planning to do to Tommel after he tried to kill Cal?
The wording of that question is hard to answer because obviously, if somebody threatens injury of Cal, I would like to kill them.
Right.
But so intrigued by the things Tommel kept saying during the fight, um, I will have to think a little bit more on player versus character motivation there. But as a player, I was
Yeah.
like, what does he mean? What is he talking about? Does he need help? Well, of course he needs help, but so um so I am not, Shade is not like hunting him down at the moment to avenge his vicious attack. She definitely has thoughts about that. Mostly, what a jerk. But
Yeah. Eric also asks, and I'm interested in this, and I wonder how much you've given thought to this. What is your idea of a quote unquote happy ending for Shade at the end of the campaign? And how much has that idea changed since you first made her? What do you imagine as a happy ending for Shade's story so far?
I'm not sure I had thought much about an end point before seeing this question. And I am glad that I saw this question before
Yeah.
recording this interview. um, and I think that the happy ending that I would have envisioned for Shade when we first started is kind of where she's at right now. I think in a lot of ways, the life that she has, where we are in the story, is what she would have envisioned as a happy ending. She has people that she trusts aren't going to leave her. She has a growing family friend circle. The number of people that she considers her family, as defined by the Moon Spears, is
Hmm.
much
Hmm.
larger than I envisioned her being able to gather from the first episode. I
Hmm.
think that she, not only her little group, immediate a group that she is confident is not going to leave her and has her back and would and has killed to protect her, and she has that balance of helping people. Sorry, my dog just started snoring very loudly. I don't know if that came through, but
Didn't.
um no, she's able to help people in the way that she wasn't helped
Mm.
as a kid, particularly with River, that relationship. So early Shade, I, I think this is her living her best life. I think it's great. Current Shade, I think happy ending would be, I, I'm not sure I could quantify it quite in this way, but having influence with someone on the council.
Mm.
Um, the family that she has did not provide the security that she thought it would, or at least the feeling of security, and knowing that people could just decide to kill her for no reason other than an inconvenience. Um, she would be, her happy ending is having everything that she has right now and being able to have some sort of control over their safety.
Mm. Cool.
Shade likes
Uh,
control.
yeah. Uh, Considering her background, that makes a great deal of sense.
Good.
And then Emily asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being Selshadra and 10 being Ari, how likely is Nasaria to make a deal that results in her owing an open-ended favor?
Not the Ari side of that scale. I When I first saw this question, I thought closer to Selshadra, but Nasaria has a bit of a pride problem. And so if there is a situation in which she feels um inadequate, especially in terms of knowledge or intelligence, I think she absolutely would make a big mistake in this case, being offering open-ended favors, which, isn't great. Um, I think she would make it.
Hmm.
I think she, in that situation, to um what is the word, to fulfill her pride? That's not the right word,
Hmm.
but um to maintain her level of being perceived as intelligent and knowing what to do. So she's probably at a solid 4 or 5.
Very good. All right. Well, that is all of our questions for this week. Thank you all so much for these great
Awesome.
questions. This was
Yeah,
a lot of
thank
fun.
you.
And thank you, Casey, for taking time to do this.
Of course.
For the rest of you, if you want to get in touch with us, you can find links to all of our social media down below, or you can get to us in comments. You can find links to see more of me and Eric, or hear more of me and Eric playing RPGs on the Eberron Nude podcast and Colin's Twitch and all that stuff down there. New episodes of Khyber Shards drop every Monday. New Khyber Shards answers every Friday. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.